Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. In this episode, we're going to be exploring mind further. Every episode of PRAJNA SPARKS takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We ask that, if you haven't already, you give us some time today to like, subscribe, share, and review our podcast. Alongside your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners.
On July 9th, 2024, just a few days after this episode first airs, Tibetan Buddhists around the world will be celebrating Chugor Duchen, the great holiday of turning the wheel of Dharma, which commemorates the first public teaching of the Buddha Shakyamuni. This teaching, the Four Truths, speaks about dukkha, which is usually translated as suffering, but also includes discontent and the sense of powerlessness. Not only obvious suffering such as pain or loss, grief, anxiety, and fear. The Buddha in the Four Truths goes into a lot of detail about dukkha. Indeed, he often said that all he ever taught was dukkha and freedom from dukkha. This is where we take off in this episode, reviewing the 4 previous episodes of this series on the 4 Yogas of Mahamudra. Freedom from dukkha. One way of understanding that is sukha, the counterpart to dukkha. From the standpoint of Mahamudra philosophy, sukha is one gate to comprehending mind's true nature. It means sweetness or bliss. That ease that comes of knowing that there is sweetness all the way down, without any fear of interruption by dukkha as pain, dukkha as the shift from obvious pain to less extreme pain and so forth, and dukkha as powerlessness. Sukha as the very nature of our mind is something that we all know to some extent. We all have this drive to be happy and not suffer, from the smallest insect up to the most powerful and wealthy. Where does that come from? From the standpoint of teachings on the Buddha nature, that drive for happiness free of suffering is the cry of Buddha nature. The longing for mind to manifest itself as it is, experiencing things as they are. In many ways, this is what Mahamudra practice is about. Our intent in leading a journey through these 4 Yogas of Mahamudra is not to give more intellectual information or food for thought or scintillating conversation topics. The point was to indicate that these 4 yogas, which are fruits of practice, the results of experience and realization on the path, can nevertheless serve as aids to our practice here and now. That's because Buddha nature, the fruition, the endpoint, so to speak, of the Buddhist path, is present here and now, as the very ground, the very nature of our mind. Mahamudra practice is aimed at a very experiential way of engaging our mind so that we encounter its breathtaking power, love, and wisdom, even if only in glimpses, here and now, so that those ways of inspiring us drive us and fuel our practice with joy and enthusiasm towards the attainment of Buddhahood. So how do these 4 yogas, which are results, fruitions, the harvest of our practice, serve as useful implements now? Well, because the nature of our mind, the fruition, is the same in quality as the ground, we can touch into these qualities in the four yogas here and now. We can even use them as guideposts for instructions in shamatha practice, the foundational practice of all Buddhist lineages. Shamatha has many different explanations, many different descriptions. Some lineages go even beyond the threshold level of concentration of shamatha to much more concentrated, intense states of awareness. But all of them are meant to serve as the foundation for vipassana, the knowing or insight into the nature of things. From a Mahamudra standpoint, these are among the many different excellent qualities of mind: one-pointed concentration, knowing with lucidity, loving kindness, wisdom, power, sukha, bliss. The list is endless. What these four yogas do is open a door to learning what we can feel our way into in our shamatha practice. So, for example, the first of the four yogas, which we left for last in this series, the yoga of one-pointedness, is that recognition that even in the midst of mind's incredibly diverse movement, that unceasing quality of interest and engagement that we're very familiar with, mind is lucid. That lucidity, that knowing quality of mind, is the quality of mind at this level that understands whether the mind is experiencing stillness or thinking, dullness or agitation. Lucidity runs through all of that. Noticing that lucidity in a continuous, unbroken stream, ever present, and resting within that, immersed in lucidity, irrespective of the various ways mind is manifesting, is a quality of one-pointedness. So this is one kind of instruction that we can bring to our shamatha practice. This is really helpful because then we're not trying to push away thoughts or even label thoughts. We're not trying to cure agitation or remedy dullness. Rather, we are noticing and remaining immersed in the lucidity, the knowing quality of mind that runs through all of these varieties of mental experience. This is how we practice shamatha with insight from the yoga of one-pointedness. Now remember, all of these yogas are not practices per se. It sounds like they are when we use the word yoga, but in this context, these are four elements of fruition which Gampopa systematized to help us understand the process of moving through Mahamudra practice through increasingly subtle levels of experience and realization. This yoga of one-pointedness begins from the very start to inform our shamatha practice. Another element is to recognize right within our shamatha practice how the yoga of nonconceptuality is manifesting in glimpses that we can harness for our attentional balance in shamatha. Gampopa tells us that the yoga of nonconceptuality relates to the lucidity of mind as being intrinsically present. What a relief! We don't have to think about, is it there, is it not there? Working from the insights that we gain in one-pointedness, for example, we can add in this sense of ease the intrinsic presence of lucidity. This is really interesting because that continuity seems to be contradictory to our experience of mind jumping here and there and everywhere, that monkey mind that we hear about a lot. Our experience of mind on a day-to-day level is highly intermittent, dispersed. And yet, because that lucidity is shot through all of it, because it is intrinsically present, there is continuity, even amidst that seeming hyper movement. Holding that paradox is one way of developing attentional balance in shamatha. How does the yoga of one taste bring us an influence, a flavor of what accomplishing shamatha might be like here and now? This is the element of practice where we are recognizing the one taste, the equality between all mental occurrences. It's not that distraction is worse and non-distraction is better, or that stillness is great, but dullness is awful. Stillness and agitation, clarity and dullness are of one taste. When we really experience the mind in this way in our shamatha practice, there isn't a need to remedy this or that. We can rest evenly in the intrinsic lucidity of mind that runs through all of the mental experiences, knowing and noticing their equality right in our immediate experience, and resting in that sense of one taste. How about the yoga of non-meditation? This relates to seeing reality as the unity of the empirical world that we experience and the emptiness that is its nature. This is not a sense of experiencing the world and reminding ourselves that it's empty and then going through a bunch of logical reasonings to explain how that is. All of those logical reasonings and intellectual understandings are critical for this practice, but they are being applied in this practice. They're not actually run through as part of the practice. Rather, we can recognize that even in the middle of any kind of experience, on or off the cushion, whatever we experience is by nature empty. And here empty means far more than void or devoid of any value. Quite the contrary. Emptiness refers to infinite potentiality. Part of interdependence is that we experience things interdependent with our own subjective caste, our karmic heritage, our cultural influences, conditions surrounding us in the immediate moment, and so forth. How can we understand that? Think about a time that you were out in nature, for example, maybe watching a sunset over a beautiful beach. You have such a sense of calm and unity, connection and beauty. But what if that sunset over the beach, same exact sunset, was happening and you got a phone call about some tragic event in your family or group of friends? All of a sudden, that sunset doesn't have the same subjective quality. The empirical sunset is identical, but the conditions under which we experience it vary. This is one very basic way that infinite potentiality touches all of our experiences. Many times we can have the sense that mind is observing an empirical world out there somewhere. What these four yogas of Mahamudra help us to bring into our practice right here and now is actually engaging in the experience of observing mind with mind. In other words, mind as the observer and mind as the content. This is so important. Because ultimately, when we start to speak about non-duality in very subtle ways, what we're talking about is mind experiencing mind. And it's not like mind that is the perceiver experiencing mind that is the perceived. It's still quite dualistic. Here's the part of mind that's perceiving, and here's the part of mind that's perceived. This is mind, minding mind. There's no need to differentiate between perceived, perceiver, and perception. No need to differentiate between meditator, meditated, and meditation. There's not even the urge to do this. Ultimately, when we attain this realization, meditation is effortless, continuous, and blissful. By practicing in this way, we start to feel effortlessness even in our everyday activity. We're not forcing ourselves to practice. We're not overcoming obstacles to practice. We want to practice. We want to connect with these qualities of mind. Each of these yogas gives us insights, invitations to connect with a different quality of mind. The yoga of one-pointedness gives us insights as to the nature of mind, its lucid, knowing quality. The yoga of nonconceptuality invites us to experiment with shamatha practice to touch into the essence of mind, its emptiness, infinite potentiality. The yoga of one-flavoredness invites us to recognize that the characteristic of mind to continue in an unbroken stream of dynamic play does not change, that the content of all that dynamism has one taste. Ultimately, the yoga of non-meditation, when realized, is no distinguishing between a time of meditation and not meditation. For us in a dualistic mindset, this is those moments of ease, joy, interest, and enthusiasm on and off the cushion that fuel our practice and make it effortless to sustain. We hope these 4 yogas inspire you as much as they inspire us. In the contemplation for this episode, we'll share some quotes from Gampopa, one of the most significant masters and lineage holders in the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, that will serve as touchstones for working with the 4 yogas as meditation instructions in the segment to follow, the guided meditation led by Lamas Zopa. Gampopa teaches, we realize the yoga of one-pointedness when we maintain a lucid state of mind without preventing its unceasing mental activities. We realize the yoga of nonconceptuality when mental lucidity is revealed as intrinsically present, and we cease to be concerned about its existence or non-existence. We realize the yoga of one pace when we are no longer concerned with diligently trying to remove disturbing influences from our sensory impressions or mental events. We realize the yoga of non-meditation when we see reality consists of the empirical world and the emptiness that is its nature. Reality is these unceasing and inseparable aspects. As you go about your day, you can take some time to reflect on these, to consider the explanations given in the talk, the descriptions guiding the meditation, and really get some deeper level intellectual understanding that can fuel the experiential understanding that arises from meditation.
This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA SPARKS. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Stay tuned now for a guided meditation. Shivni is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving us some time out of your day to like, subscribe, share, and review PRAJNA SPARKS. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at PRAJNA SPARKS. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit. Hello, friends, and welcome to this meditation. For these past several months, we've been exploring Mahamudra, how it relates to mind, and in particular, these four fruitions of Mahamudra, the achievements of one-pointedness, nonconceptuality, one taste, and non-meditation, and how these might apply to our practice. Part of the beauty of Mahamudra, the Great Seal, is in many ways its simplicity, cutting right to the quick of our experience. As we may have discovered for ourselves going through this process, it is not so easy to rest naturally relaxed. We start to see that the simplicity of Mahamudra meditation instructions is not that easy to apply. Thus, we have so many different approaches, techniques. For our meditation today, we are going to approach this practice, seeing how much we can bring to bear of all four of these yogas of Mahamudra into our present moment practice, seeing how we might use them to inform our meditation here and now, leaning into curiosity, openness, experience. I invite you during this meditation to lean into your curiosity, to open up and to just see where this might lead you. To begin, let's take our seats, allowing ourselves to come into the present moment, establishing a posture that feels both supportive and relaxed, conducive to being present. Just let go. Allow yourself to watch your mind and what is occurring. There's nothing else that we have to do. Nothing is off limits here. This brief practice is just about engendering attentiveness without any agenda. Willingness to experience without trying to control. We're not labeling, just experiencing and cultivating awareness. Let's practice like this for just a minute or two. Now, in this space, we're going to spend a little time leaning into each one of the yogas of Mahamudra and seeing how they might inform our practice. The way we'll do that for this podcast meditation is I will give a brief quote from the Lord Gampopa on each one of the yogas, and then a prompt that you might use to guide your practice. Let these instruction prompts give you a clue or a launching pad for the experience that you're tapping into. First, the yoga of one-pointedness. Gampopa says, "We realize the yoga of one-pointedness when we maintain a lucid state of mind without preventing its unceasing mental activities." For our practice, we might begin by identifying the lucidity running through thoughts, running through dullness, running through agitation. Identify that lucidity in whatever mental occurrence may be popping up in your experience right here and now. Noticing that lucidity, unbroken, ever present, rest there. Moving on to the yoga of nonconceptuality. Gampopa relates, we realize the yoga of nonconceptuality when mental lucidity is revealed as intrinsically present, and we cease to be concerned about its existence or non-existence. Notice how this lucidity, its intrinsic presence, seems to contradict our experience of mental occurrences coming, staying, going. One is intrinsic, natural, ever-present. The other, intermittent, temporary, fleeting. Rest in this paradox of emptiness as infinite potentiality. The yoga of one taste. Gampopa says, we realize the yoga of one taste when we are no longer concerned with diligently trying to remove disturbing influences from our sensory impressions or mental events. The emptiness or infinite potentiality of mind means that no mental occurrence is better than any other. Non-distraction is not better than distraction. From the perspective of the golden thread of intrinsic lucidity running through it all, they are all of one taste. Stillness and agitation, clarity and dullness, one taste. Noticing their equality in your immediate experience. Rest in that one taste. Of the yoga of non-meditation, Gampopa says, we realize the yoga of non-meditation when we see reality consists of the empirical world and the emptiness that is its nature. Reality is these unceasing and inseparable aspects. Notice in your practice, in this moment, any ideas towards, or even the impetus to differentiate meditator, meditated, and meditation. If thoughts of meditator, meditated, and meditation are of one taste, why restrict ourselves? Why label? Allow intrinsic lucidity to shine bare and brilliant in and of itself, without limitation, still and sweet. Let go into the ease of non-doing. Take delight in witnessing mind's lucid emptiness in all the myriad ways it appears. Thank you, friends, for coming on this brief exploration of how we might apply some small aspects of the Four Yogas of Mahamudra to our practice here and now. Let's conclude by gathering whatever goodness may have come from this contemplation, meditation, and the listening that preceded it, and share it with all beings, that we may all revel in and delight in mind's intrinsic nature, our true home. Thank you.